all about the but what abouts. I started this little series about is it age or is it something else? Because I really wanted to conquer not only the myth that I talk about all the time, which is the ridiculous concept that time passing on a calendar causes deterioration, which is an absolute lie. Anybody telling you that is lying to you. Anybody that says that is a liar. And yes, I called you a liar if you believe that, or have been telling people that. But I really started this series because I really wanted to tackle all the but what abouts. Yeah, Garrett, I hear you about the whole it's fitness, nutrition, lifestyle mindset, but what about my shoulder? What about this that happens, that happens? And I'm trying to tackle all those. And one that is very common, we see every day. In fact, it's one I know for a fact that each one of us have done. Is what we're covering today, because it is as simple as not a food, not really an activity. No, degeneration is not caused by time passing on a calendar. It can be caused by something as simple as how you sit down today on the Personalized Fitness Podcast. Good day and welcome to the Personalized Fitness Podcast. My name is Garrett Williamson. I'm president of Personalized Fitness and the host of the Personalized Fitness Podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today in this continuing series of is it age, is it time, is it age, or is it something else? And today, is it age that's causing your deterioration, or is it the way you sit down, or for that matter, squatting? Now, before I get into the subject and beat it to death like I usually do, I want to tell you how to get in touch with the show. If you have any questions, or if you have any questions about this subject or any others, if you have a question for Ask Katie, or if you just you have questions about dispelling the myths of health, fitness, and wellness. And one other thing, somebody asked me this last week, if you totally disagree with me and you want to set an appointment so you can sit and argue with me, more than glad to. Please contact me at 251-278-3343. That's 251-278-EDGE. You can also reach me at Garrett, Garrett, at personalizedfitness.com. That's my email address. Personalizedfitness.com is our website. Personalized Fitness is our Facebook page. Hit me up on Twitter at Team PE if that's the way you want to get in touch with me. So any of those ways are perfectly fine. Continue on with this subject now, tackling this subject. I really wanted to, in this series, I wanted to break this down to the absurd, the ridiculous. I want to hit everybody's myth. Every myth that you may have that, you know, this deterioration is just happening to me. I want to try to tackle everyone. And I may be doing this forever, but I want to try to tackle all of them. But I want to start off with my definition of age. It's not just my definition. If you look at Webster's, this is the definition of age. There's variations of it, but they basically boil down to this, and that is that age is the deterioration of what happens to us, either spontaneously or through deliberate action. So the things that happen to your body, happen to us, happen in this case, we're talking about the human body, that happen to the human body either spontaneously or through deliberate action. And the argument I have, and it is, I've told you many times that I'll tell you that if it's a fact and I can back it up with a clinical study and it's a fact, I will talk about it. It will be a fact. I won't say any different. If it is my opinion, I strive my best to let you know when something is my opinion. And I was told by a new member who listens to the podcast, a great fan of the podcast, that told me I did a good job of that, and I really appreciate that. That was her opinion. I appreciate that comment. But this is my opinion because there hasn't been a study that actually attacks this. But it is my opinion that spontaneous stuff that we believe happens is an absolute lie. Why do I say that? And why do I think I'm going to tell you it's my opinion because there's never been a study. But I argue that it's fact. And the reason I argue that it's fact is still, again, it's my opinion. But the reason I argue that it's fact is because there's not one clinical study on the face of the earth anywhere that proves that time passing on a calendar causes deterioration. In other words, there's not a single clinical study that proves that the spontaneous action actually causes the deterioration. There are copious amounts of studies that prove that deliberate action is what's causing it. And the neat thing about that, folks, What makes so many people so upset is it has to happen spontaneous to me. If it doesn't, then it's my fault. Yeah, it is. It's your fault. It's your responsibility. But the neat thing about that, this is the good news. Please don't turn the page yet. If it's your fault, if it's your responsibility, then you can change it. Winners always want the ball. You want that control in your hands, and you have it. Don't believe the lies. Now, I want to define these things that are, I keep mentioning this thing called the what abouts. And that is, because so many people, when I give a talk, and I'll berate it, Lord, if you're a fan of the podcast, you know, obviously I like to talk. If you've ever engaged with me in a conversation on this subject, it went on a lot longer than you ever expected it to, I promise you. Because I try to make every point, every detail of it abundantly clear. And it's invariably, I'm going to have somebody in the audience say to me, but what about? Yeah, I hear all that stuff, but what about, my shoulder, after a while, it just started breaking down and just started, spontaneously degenerated. And so one of the biggest but what abouts we have is our knees. Hip joints are another one, but knees are a big one. So, and this is what I wanted to attack. I wanted to confront the simplest action, deliberate action. I like to attack those because it's easy for people to say, well, I didn't play football in high school, so I don't have a high school injury. That doesn't relate to me. Well, everybody sits down. Everybody sits down. And by the way, if you happen to see some report that came on some show years ago about a man in Sweden or something that decided he was never going to sit down, that was just absurd. Everybody sits down. And believe it or not, the way in which you sit down most likely is causing deterioration to your knees, deliberately causing deterioration to your knees. Don't feel bad. Please don't feel bad. Most likely you were never instructed how to do it correctly. Believe it or not, you were born knowing how to do it correctly. And it's going to be very difficult if you're listening to this, even if you're seeing it on social media, to understand some of these examples that I'm giving, because I'm actually going to describe the action of doing it incorrectly and the action of doing it correctly. But I will tell you this, and I'll tell you then also, that if this intrigues you, and you are interested and you don't quite understand what I'm saying and the descriptions I'm giving about how to sit down properly, how to stand up properly, how to squat properly, no problem. Give us a call. Call me up, 251-278-3343. Set an appointment. Be more than glad to show you. It takes just a few minutes. If you've seen me do it in a live speaking engagement, I've actually demonstrated this. It's very simple. And, of course, if I'm going to talk about this, I'm going to back it up with a clinical study. Now, the thing is that we're actually born knowing how to do this correctly. And go to your mind's eye. If you've ever seen a toddler, then you've watched a toddler for any short amount of time, besides them sleeping, actually them moving around, functioning. You've actually seen this. And if you have children, I guarantee you've seen it. In fact, I'll push it a step further. I bet you've taken a picture of it. And that is watching them squatting down to pick something up. Because they take that big diaper and they push that rear end backwards and they bend over. And oh, it's so cute. And they squat down. Their knees are up by their chin. Believe it or not, that infant knows how to sit and squat better than we do, than most of us do. Because we are born knowing how to do it correctly. We change it. I'll tell you some reasons why we change that. One of the reasons why we change that is because we've been lied to about how we can bend at our waist. But very commonly put, and try to do this in an easy description, typically when we go to do a squat and do a sitting, and the reason I'm using those interchangeably, if you're saying to yourself, but Garrett, my doctor told me never to squat, I don't squat. Well, then how do you sit down? Because sitting down is a squat, period, end of story. You may think that, oh, I don't squat when I sit. Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. It's a squat. Sitting down is a squat. And when we go to sit down or we go to stand up, either way, we typically do not bend at the waist. We don't counterbalance our rear end. If you think about it, you're standing in front of a chair. If all your weight is on your feet, It is not behind you where the chair is. Well, at the end of this action, where's your weight going to be? What's going to be behind you? It's going to be in the chair. So when you're pushing the weight as you're sitting down, you're pushing your weight backwards. Well, if you push all your weight backwards, you're going to fall down if you don't counterbalance somehow. And I promise you, even you, everybody counterbalances. It's physically impossible not to. Newton was involved in proving this years ago. So you're going to counterbalance one way or the other. And you have two ways of counterbalancing. Either you can push your knees forward, which shifts some of your weight forward, tucking your rear end underneath you, and lower yourself down with your quadriceps, not using your glutes and not using your hamstrings, and lower yourself into the chair, which is what the majority of us do. Or you can bend over with legs straight, bend at the waist, head looking forward, back arched, putting weight in front of you, in other words, bending the front of your body forward, putting weight forward as you push your rear end backwards. Once you get into that position, then bend your knee. Yes, you're going to bend your knees. Many people, when they hear me say this, think, I can't sit down with straight legs. You start off with straight legs, and then once you're in that position, bend your knees and lower yourself down, using your hamstrings and using your glutes, your rear end, your butt, the biggest muscle in the body. And that is the proper way to sit down. That first way is called knees over toes, pushing your knees forward. And when you see this, it's easy. You don't have to have an exercise physiology degree. You can actually see the pressure in your knees. It's pushing forward the way the joint's not supposed to go. Basically, if you're looking on social media, you're seeing my two hands together. I'm the top of it. Where my two fingers meet right here is representing the knee joint. If the knee joint is basically supposed to handle weight going just like this, which is basically a 90-degree angle, but if I push weight forward and the knee goes forward, now I've got weight pushing against the knee joint, which it's not supposed to do. And I'm sorry, it's hard to do this when I'm talking on and give you the description so you can to build the picture for you. But like I said, if you're interested in seeing this or you're interested in learning how to do this correctly, 251-278-3343, 251-278-EDGE. Garrett, Garrett, at personaledgefitness.com. Email me, call me. Be more than glad to set that up for you. So, what happens? Okay, we do that one time and our knee's destroyed. No. Believe it or not, you can do it one time with the proper angle, the improper angle, I should say, improper weight, and you can do damage just one time. But you do that starting at, I'm making up an age. It starts different areas for everybody. But say we started at 7 years old, and you do it every day, all the time, every time you sit down, and you do it all the way up to your 60s. Well, if you're damaging your knee just a slight amount, but you're doing it over time, then that causes degeneration. Now, you heard me say time, so now you may be thinking, oh, see, Garrett, age causes it. No. You can do it correctly that same amount of time and never have a problem with the knee. In fact, you won't degenerate the glutes and won't degenerate the hamstrings. You've heard me use this example several times, and that is I use it in describing a male, and the reason being the majority of males are built like apples and women are built like pears, so we don't carry our excess fat. Men do not carry their excess fat typically in their hips and their lower body. And so you can get a better idea of degeneration of muscle in a male, in the lower half of the male, than you can in a female, because females displace or carry their fat lower in the body. So you can't visually see whether or not, is that glutes or am I looking at fat? But you can in a gentleman. And if you think about it, picture a gentleman in his I'll pick a number, 70s, 80s. And I've used this description before. They typically look like you took a frog. And I'm borrowing this from Jeff Foxworthy, by the way. Took a frog, stood him up, and put a pair of sandal belt slacks on him. They have, as a friend of one of my clients he says, the no butt at all. He uses it as one word. No butt at all. Their rear end is gone. Why? Well, that person's been standing up, sitting down, squatting incorrectly so many years that they don't use their glutes. They use their quads. They don't use their glutes, and they don't use their hamstrings, and those have degenerated, which is causing knee damage, believe it or not. Weak hamstrings cause knee damage. which is also why I've told you many times, that person was going to win the 100 yards he's going to get the gold medal in the Olympics, but he pulled it's a hamstring. You said it in your head before I said it in your ear. Okay, wait a second. How can this all be true? How can this be a podcast about this if I don't have a clinical study? Well, here you go. And I'm reading this because I can't memorize all these. And I want to make sure that I get the references correct, so that if you want to double check it, go for it. Study published in the European Journal of Orthopedic Surgery and Traumatology in 2020 found that individuals who frequently squatted or sat with incorrect form, such as letting their knees collapse inward or going over their toes as they go into the squat, without proper alignment, experienced a higher incidence of knee injuries and early onset osteoarthritis. They caused the damage. It was a deliberate action. It wasn't spontaneous. It was a deliberate action. And when I was reading that article about that, it said that essentially to understand that age and time do play a role. And I thought that was interesting because most people think, see, age is causing it, Garrett. No, it's not causing it. Time is a factor in that if you are doing this deliberate action, then that's when time comes into play. If you're doing it for a long amount of time, that's when you'll cause the damage. But you can take one of those out of there and you won't have any damage. And it's not time. Take the deliberate action out. Then time has no bearing on it whatsoever. That's why I say that time passing on a calendar doesn't cause degeneration. Here's another study. There's plenty of them, but there's another one. This is a little bit different. And not really what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the improper form of sitting and standing or squatting. But here's another thing. Here's another deliberate action. When I was doing my research, I came across this, something I'd never thought about. But here, I threw it in here because yet another deliberate action that's causing damage. Study published in the Journal of Orthopedic and Sport Physical Therapy in 2018 found that poor sitting posture. What do they mean by that? With crossed legs or prolonged knee flexion increased the pressure on the knee joint, leading to cartilage breakdown and potential damage to ligaments and tendons. Now, you've felt that sometimes when you've crossed your legs a certain way and you felt a little bit of pressure in that knee joint. Well, that's improper, especially for a prolonged amount of time. And, raise your hand if you've done that. If you're not watching this on social media, I'll let you know. I'm raising my hand. Of course I've done it. We've all done it. But that's what's causing the damage. Those deliberate actions are what causing the damage. Yes, am I belaboring the point? Yes, I always will. Mainly because I feel I was put on this earth to clear up this issue about time passing on a calendar causing things to happen. In other words, we cause it age. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to give your life back to you. I'm trying to show you where you have control of these things, and I'm trying to attack every possible belief you have about the fact that anything outside of fitness, nutrition, lifestyle, or mindset causing damage to your body. It's not. Outside of an accident or disease, you understand what I'm saying. If you think it's time, or if some idiot has told you that time caused it, let them know that Garrett Williamson called them an idiot. Please have them call me, 251-278-3343. Garrett, Garrett, at personalizedfitness.com, personalizedfitness.com being our website and our Facebook page. Reach out to me at Twitter, at Team PE. Listen, folks, I'm not trying to be rude. I'm not trying to beat you up. I'm trying to give you hope. We at Personal Edge here at Fitness are trying to show you can make a change no matter what time you have on the calendar through ridiculous examples such as telling you how to sit down and stand up, or just one more way we help you reach your level of wellness. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope I see you next time.